Today I'm bringing you the best Runick for Hire deck profile for the November 2023 Competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Let's jump into it. What's up, Ocean? You got Matt here, and welcome back to another Competitive Yu-Gi-Oh video. Today I'm bringing you one of the best decks you could possibly play if you are on a budget in Runick for Hire. The entire deck can be got for around $50 or so, with the exception of 2 to 3 cards, but those cards can be replaced. With this deck, you can drop to 6 cards per turn, even on your opponent's turn, which is absolutely incredible. So if you're excited for the video, then make sure to smash the like button. If this video hits 100 likes, and I'll make sure to bring you the ultimate combo guide for Runick for Hire. Also, if you enjoy deck profiles, combo guides, meta discussions, and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh videos in general, you're going to love this channel. So make sure to subscribe and help us reach our end of year goal of 3,000 subscribers. Now, with that being said, here's the best Runick for Hire deck profile for the November 2023 competitive Yu-Gi-Oh format. Let's jump into it. All right, so here we are back with the deck profile, and I wanted to go over this deck because I think right now it's actually very underrated in the format today. Now, granted, this way of playing is a little bit different than the way you're used to seeing it right now, but I do think that this way, it kind of covers everything that you really want to in the meta. It has a really good matchup against quite a few different decks, and we're just gonna go ahead and jump on into it. And if you guys want a combo guide for this deck, then make sure to smash the like button. If this video hits 100 likes, then I will bring you that combo guide. Now, usually the way I would do this is I would be going over by monster, spells, and traps, but I'm actually not going to do that for this specific build here because we're actually playing a few different engines in the deck and a bunch of non-engine pieces. So we're going to go engine by engine. Starting off, of course, with the For Hire engine. We have 3 copies of Rex Freight for Hire. This is your 1-card starter of the deck. The fact that on summon, normal, or special allows you to search for a For Hire spell or trap is really powerful. And then, of course, while it's in the graveyard during the main phase as a quick effect, so your opponent's or your turn, you can banish this card and then special summon a For Hire from your graveyard is great because not only will it trigger your other For Hire effects on field, but it'll allow you to also start getting actual recovery back as well, which is really solid because we're playing such a small For Hire engine. The rest of our For Hire engine is going to be the 1 copy of Beat Blazeman for Hire, the 1 copy of Donpa Marksman for Hire, and the 1 copy of Rafal Champion for Hire. These are going to be our monsters in the For Hire engine. They're very important to the strategy. Beat essentially, when it's on the field, if a For Hire monster is special summoned, then you can just search for any For Hire monster from your deck to your hand, which is great. Donpa, same situation. When it's on the field and a For Hire monster is special summoned, you can target a face-up card in the field and destroy it, which is really good at triggering the effects of something like your Folgo. Rafal has a few effects, the first of which is when it's special summoned, you can excavate cards from the top of your deck up to the number of different For Hire monsters you control, except for itself, and add one to your hand. So if you have, let's say, Rafal, Beat, and Donpa on the field, and you summon out Rafal, then you're going to be able to excavate the top 2 cards of your deck, so you have 1 and 2 with different names, and add 1 cards to your hand. So this does work if you only have 1 card. So let's say you have Rafal and Beat, you can just excavate, you're basically just drawing a card, which is amazing on summon. It just replaces itself, which is so good. Its second effect is going to be that when a monster effect is activated, you can discard a card for Hire, a For Hire monster, or spell or trap, and then be able to just negate the activation. It doesn't destroy it, which sucks, but it does negate it, which is still nice, and it's a really big body at 2,800 attack. The 2 other For Hire monsters, they have the ability where when they're on the field, they can activate the effect to special summon a For Hire monster from your hand, which is really good at starting your plays. Just Beat with another For Hire monster itself is absolutely incredible, so just there, you really want to see these cards here. The spells and traps for Hire that we play in the deck are going to be the 1 Mayhem for Hire and the 1 Rookie for Hire. These cards are pretty important to the strategy. Mayhem is essentially the monster reborn for any non-link for Hire monster because that's summoned in defense position. And then Rookie for Hire is going to be great because it is going to be one of the ways you get access to multiple different engines in the deck. If you have a way to get to Rex plus one of your Runick engines and you get access to Hugin, for example, you can Rookie for Hire, tribute over the Hugin, and then summon out the Beat, which can get the rest of your play started, which is really powerful from there. And of course, both these cards are searchable off of the effect of Rex. That's going to be it for the For Hire names in the deck. We do play one other card that's part of the For Hire engine. That's going to be 3 copies of the Fossil Dig. Now, Fossil Dig is so incredibly important in this deck because it is another way to get access to Rex. Rex, being the 1-card starter that it is, means that you have to have a way to get to it. So if you have your Fossil Dig with your 3 copies of Rex, it'll allow you to search for it pretty easily. And again, these are the cards you really want to see in the strategy. Fossil Dig with Rex, very important. So that's going to be it for our For Hire engine. It's going to be 11 cards here. Really important. All of them are mandatory. It is the lowest count I would possibly do for the For Hire portion of the deck. Anything else is just feels like it's not enough. Anything above that, in my opinion, is just a bit too much. If you want to go even more heavy on it, I understand why. I just personally would not do it. Moving on though to the Runick portion of the deck, we have of course the 2 copies of Runick Fountain. We have our 3 copies of Runick Tip. We have our 3 copies of Freezing Curses. We have our 3 copies of Flashing Fire, our 3 copies of Destruction, and then our 3 copies of Slumber, which is really in the glare there, unfortunately. Runick Fountain has 2 effects, the first of which is going to be that you can activate Runick Quick Play spells from your hand during your opponent's turn, which is obviously really strong, allows you to keep your resources in hand and protect them from cards like Harpy's Feather Duster and Lightning Storm, etc. And then of course the second effect it's going to have is after you activate a Runick Quick Play spell, you can activate the effect where you can take three Runick Quick Play spells, from your graveyard, put them to the bottom of your deck, and draw the same number of cards. So if you activate something like Runick Tip and you have 2 other Runick spells in your graveyard, you can take them all, put them to the bottom of your deck, and draw 3 cards and recycle resources that way, which is so strong. Runick Tip, of course, and Runick Freeze and Curses, Flashing Fire, Destruction, and Slumber all have 2 effects. The first of which is the same one, where you can special summon a Runick monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone. This is really good because essentially one of the Runick monsters, Hugin, the Runick Wings, allows you to get access to Runick Tip, or Runick Fountain, which is really strong. So you basically always have access to the field spell through any one of your Runick cards, which is obviously really strong. On top of that, they all have a second effect, which is all very powerful. Runick Tip allows you to search for any Runick card. So if you have Runick Tip, you don't actually have to summon out the Hugin, for example. You can just search directly for the Fountain, which is really good because Hugin forces you to discard a card, so you actually lose out on card advantage, meaning Runick Tip allows you to go even, which is obviously great. There are some situations where you do want to be able to actually activate it to summon out the Hugin if you really need the body on board, but it's not always going to be the case. Freezing Curses is great. It's essentially going to be the effect negation for the strategy. You're going to be able to activate a target effect monster your opponent controls, negates effects until the end of the turn, and then you banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. I forgot to mention, but Runick Tip, after you search, you banish 1 from your opponent's deck, or the top 1 from their opponent's deck, which is obviously, again, really good because if you're trying to banish their resources, it makes it really hard for them to come back, especially if they have a lot of non-engine in their deck to try and interrupt you and you just lose all of that, which is really good for you. So again, Freezing Curses is the negate and banish the top 3 cards from the deck. Then we have Flashing Fire, which is going to be targeting a special summon monster that your opponent controls, destroy it, and banish the top 2 cards from the deck, which is again really strong. Destruction targets spells and traps and destroys those, and then banish the top 4 of the opponent's deck. And then there's Runick Slumber, which is not the most important at all by any means, but it also has a really solid effect, being that you can target a face-up monster on the field, yours or your opponent's, and the next time it would be destroyed by battle or card effect this turn. It's not. Also, it can't attack this turn, which is kind of irrelevant because a lot of the Runick cards stop you from attacking. And then on top of that, once that is done, you banish the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Now, the Runick cards are all very powerful, but they all have one specific downside, and that's going to be that after you activate the effect, you skip your next battle phase. So you actually have to enter battle phase and skip your battle phase and go directly to end phase after that, and then you can use your next battle phase. So it's very important in this situation here, and it's one of the reasons why Runick works so well with For Hire, because the amount of pure drawing that you're going to be doing, you're kind of overwhelming your opponent in card advantage. You don't actually always have to bring their life points down to 0. You can just out advantage them throughout the entire game, and then they'll just surrender that way. And if you really need to get a win in time, you have ways to do that, absolutely. And honestly, once you go through 2 turns where you kind of just get advantage, you should be able to just win the game on a battle phase right away, because you'll have so much more advantage than your opponent would have. Anyways, that's going to be it for the Runick engine. It is going to be 17 cards. Some people play 17 Runick quick play spells. I don't feel the need to. I feel like 15 is enough with the Runick Fountain, and I'm pretty happy with those ratios right there. Next up, though, is going to be a very small engine, and it's an engine that I don't really like to play in this deck, but I feel it has some utility. That's going to be a very small sprite engine. We're playing the 1 copy of blue, the 1 copy of carrot, and the 1 copy of red. Now, I may be saying, what the hell? This is the smallest sprite engine you could possibly be playing. Why are you playing the engine anyways? Here's the thing. They're all level 2s, and a lot of the cards in this strategy, Rex, Hugin, are also level 2s. You basically want to get access to those cards throughout the entirety of the duel. So if you have access to one of them on the field, you can summon out the blue, the carrot, the red, and they're in a great position. Blue gets you to either carrot or red, and in reality, the only reason I'm playing blue is because it does get you to these 2 over here. Carrot and red are going to be your spell and trap negate and your monster negate, which is really nice. So that's the only reason I'm playing them. They give you extra negates and extra bodies on top of that as free special summons. If you have something like a Hugin on field and you have something like a Rex on field, but you have no way of getting access to another For Hire monster, then you want to have a way to be able to summon out a 3rd body on board to be able to go into something like a Folgo that's going to be a different attribute from the other card, or different type rather, from the cards that your opponent controls. I believe Hugin is a fairy, Rex is a dinosaur, and then these 3 are all thunders. So you can use these, summon out something like it could be a Beat, it could be a Dawnplay, it could be even the Rafale, for example. It doesn't really matter. As long as you have one extra type on board of monster, you can go into your Folgo and just kind of win the game from there and get it so much advantage. And that's why we want to have these here, but also because they give us potential for negation, and they're of course going to be easy special summons to our side of the field. And that's why we play them. Again, not the biggest fan, but I feel the need is pretty important. I just don't want to overwhelm my deck with sprite cards. Some decks are playing very heavy count of sprite blues. I don't feel the need to. Some decks play the Jet, some decks play the starter as well. Again, I don't feel the need to. This is not a sprite deck. This is a For Hire Runick deck with some sprite incorporated into it. Anyways, that's going to be it for our sprite cards. Let's go ahead and move on to our non-engine. We have 10 cards for non-engine here. We have 3 copies of Ash, We have 3 copies of the beautiful Secret Veiler. Oh, I love this rarity of Veiler. 3 copies of Fenrir, and then the 1 copy of Called by the Grave. Now, this lineup here is a little bit interesting, you might be saying, and the reason why I'm playing it is this. First off, Ashe is arguably the best hand trap in the format right now. It is super generic, super good against so many different strategies, so you want to have access to this in your deck. In fact, Veiler, the reason why we play Veiler over Imperm, yes, Veiler over Imperm in the strategy, is not because Imperm is more expensive. It's because Veiler itself can be activated when you have cards on the field. Now, the reason why we want to do this, and yes, I know it can only be activated during your opponent's turn, so you can't really use it like a board breaker, like Imperm can be used. But Veiler is so good because if you're drawing cards during your end phase or during your opponent's turn, or whatever the case might be, you can then activate Veiler after you've already built your board. Well, Imperm, if you can't set it face down, then it's useless for you. So for that reason, I think that Veiler right now is actually a bit better than Imperm is specifically for this strategy. Then we have Fenrir. Fenrir itself is a fantastic card. It's great at breaking boards. It replaces itself as well. It gets a body on the field on top of that. So if you special out Fenrir, activate the effect to search a card that's really strong, obviously replace itself right away. Droll is kind of a pain if you do that, so just keep that in mind. You may want to go with something else before you go and activate the effect of Fenrir. But more importantly, it gives you a different type on board. Fenrir is a psychic type monster, meaning that you can just use it as a way to get into Donner or Folgo, which is obviously going to be one of your win conditions for the deck. And then finally, the effect of removal is so strong, and that's just can't be understated how good it is against so many different boards. It just forces out so many points of negation that your opponent has to respect this card so much. And finally, Call by the Grave, very important in this deck. Droll sucks, Ashe at the right time sucks, Veiler at the right time sucks, so you want to have a way to deal with that, and Call by the Grave definitely does it. It is the 41st card in the deck. If you want one card to cut to bring it down to 40, Called by the Grave is the option. But right now with this strategy, we have at least a 50% chance, a 51% chance to open up with at least a copy of Rex. So that's going to be Rex itself and the Fossil Dig, and at least 1 copy of a Runick card. That's going to be a Runick quick play spell. So keep that in mind. That's really solid. We want to have that. And then we have a bunch of room for non-engine, 41 cards, 10 pieces of non-engine, 3 copies of sprite cards, and then we have a bunch of cards in our main 2 engine. That's going to be it for our main deck. Let's go ahead and move on to our extra deck. So starting off, we have 2 copies of Hugin, the Runick Wings. We have the 1 Munin, the Runick Wings, and we have 1 Gary, the Runick Fangs. This is going to be it for our Runick extra deck pieces. We don't really need more than this right now. Essentially, we're going to have access to Hugin as our main searcher in the deck for the field spell. It's also going to be destruction protection as well. So if our opponent goes like Duster and we chain a Runick spell trap to summon out Hugin, we can then use the replacement effect to, I think it's banish Hugin instead. It's either banish them to the graveyard, I forget right now. But it's basically protection, which is really nice. It's a protection that's not going to be on the field too, which is so strong on top of that. It won't allow you to trigger the effect of Hugin to discard and search another field spell, but it's really not the end of the world. It's a great way to protect the field spell in your strategy. Munin rather is great because it gives you access to recovery as well. Yeah, you recover a Runick quick play or continuous spell rather, which is not that great because you don't play any in the deck, but it is a way to help you win in time. And on top of that, it's a level 3, which is important. The fact that it's a level 3 monster allows you to tribute it with something like the Rookie for Hire if you manage to hard draw the Rookie for Hire and summon out immediately from your deck your copy of Rex, which allows you to get your play started. So you don't always have to have Hugin as your play starter. It could be Munin instead. And then finally is going to be Gary. Gary essentially is your field spell recovery from the graveyard rather. You can just target a non-quick play Runick card in your graveyard and then add it to your hand. So you basically get back your field spell in case you run out of them, which is going to be really strong. And that's the reason why you play it. It's level 4, doesn't make too much difference. If you do want to go for something like a rookie on that, and then you can rookie it out and then go into something like your beat, which is nice because that's level 3, so it does work quite well there. Next up though is going to be our non-Runick cards. We're going to go into our XCs. We have the 1 copy of number 29 Mannequin Cat, as well as our Zeus package. We're going to be the number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito, the Downer Magician, and then the Zeus, of course. This is going to be our Zeus package. Very important in the strategy, I find. We're not locking ourselves out of level 2s at any point in time, but a lot of our deck is going to be very heavy link based, except for our rank 2s rather, in the form of something like our, we have, of course, what is it called? Oh my god, I'm blanking on it. Our sprite package, there we go. To get into Mannequin Cat, which is great. We play every single attribute in our deck except for water. So if our opponent has a non-water attribute monster in their graveyard, we can summon it back, Mannequin Cat, get out anything from our deck, and then just go off to the races from there, which is going to be really strong. The number 2 Ninja Shadow Mosquito is part of our Zeus line. We do have the effect to negate with it on as well, but in reality, we're just going to be going overlay 2 level 2s for Mosquito, attacking something, no damage, no destruction, overlay Downer Magician, and then overlay Zeus and blow up the board. We have 2 materials on Zeus from there, which is going to be very important. So that's going to be our XCs package. Really, really strong and very useful in this strategy. I find I go into it quite a bit as a way to recover in case I didn't get my plays going on the first turn. Then we have our Link Monster, starting off with 2 copies of Donner Dagger for Hire. I think this card is absolutely incredible in strategy. If I would bump up a card to 3, it would be this one here. It is so strong in the strategy. The fact that you're able to tribute a for hire monster and then special summon for hire from your graveyard. And if you special summon a Link monster, sorry, if you tribute a Link monster, excuse me, you can summon another for hire instead, which is going to be absolutely incredible and can really start your plays. And it's one of the opening combos that we want to have. We go through Donner quite a bit in this deck. Then it's going to be Folgo. We end on Folgo a lot. Folgo is the most important card in the extra deck, in my opinion, because without this card here, you cannot draw 3 on your opponent's turn. You cannot draw 6 on your opponent's turn, rather. You can draw 3 off the effects of the Runick cards, but you can draw 6 because you'll have your Folgo as well to help with the destruction. So again, really powerful here, and it summons out any for hire monster from the deck, which is just so strong. Then our final 3 cards are going to be the 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix, which is going to be great to not only fuel your graveyard, because the discard can be really good to start turning on something like your Mayhem, for example, but it's also back row hate against something like a anti-spell fragrance, which could be really annoying for your strategy, even other floodgates that can be just problematic for you too. And then of course we have the 1 IP Masquerena, and then the 1 copy of SP Little Knight. And that's going to be it for our extra deck. IP into Little Knight is really strong. We can go into that pretty easily. If you have Folgo pointing down to IP and then you go and link off into Little Knight with an extra card in your opponent's turn, it's going to be really strong. So keep that in mind. It could work out really well. I do think that SP Little Knight in the strategy is absolutely fantastic. And it's a card that has to be played in pretty much every single extra deck right now. If you do not have it and you want to keep this deck budget, then drop Little Knight and put in Unicorn instead. You're going to have the card advantage anyway, so just play Unicorn instead, but SP Little Knight is going to be a fantastic option nonetheless. Moving on to our side deck, we have the mandatory copy of Wiz Sage for Hire. You have to play this card in this deck. It is so good because it's your way to win in time. On top of that, it is a water monster, which means that off of Mannequin Cat, you can actually summon it out, which is going to be a great way to just help you not only win in time, but again, just be so effective in pretty much every single situation, because it is also going to be a spell and trap negate, which is great. We then have 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. If any of the hand traps that you have in your main deck really aren't that good, you can side them out and put in Droll and Lockbird instead, which is going to be a fantastic option against many different decks. At the bare minimum, it'll just stop a few searches, but at the best case scenario, it can be turn ending against something like Dragon Link or something like, I don't know, it could be Vanadium or whatever the case might be. Droll and Lockbird is a fantastic option against so many strategies. You really have to play it in this deck, in my opinion. Then we have the 2 copies of Abyssals. We have 1 Magnamut and 1 Druid's Worm. Again, I think these cards are so good in this strategy. Not only do they get you a body on the field, but Magnamut can also search out your Rafale, which is going to be a dragon type monster. They're great against a deck like Tearlaments. They're great against any graveyard deck that plays light and dark monsters. So really play it. It's gonna be fantastic to just allow you to get either extra interruption in Magnamut, extra bodies in Magnamut, or extra interruption in the form of Druid's Worm as well. So again, play these cards are so strong. We then have 2 different kaijus. Why do we have 2 different kaijus? Well, first off, if you have an opponent's monster that's really problematic, you draw 2 kaijus. You want to be able to summon the smaller one, Gamma-Seal, to your opponent's field, and take the other one for yourself. In this case, will be Kumongous. The reason why I'm playing Kumongous is because it's only 2400 attack. It's the other smallest kaiju other than Gamma-Seal, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And on top of that, it is also going to be an insect monster, which is a different type than any other card we have in our deck. So we can easily make something like the Folgo or the Donner with this card, which is so important. We then have our back row removal, which is going to be the 1 Harpy's Feather Duster and the 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. Again, Cosmic Cyclone is so good, especially because right now there's so many back row decks, so many decks that play back row cards. You want to have a way around them, and getting rid of them with Cosmic Cyclone is really nice. Being a quick play is great as well, and you also don't want to trigger the effects of the Unchained cards. If you go for like MST on an Unchained card, then you're just kind of going minus right there, which is a huge problem for you. So I would really recommend playing the Cosmic Cyclone over something like MST or even Twin Twister, in my opinion. Moving on though, let's go ahead and talk about the other cards in our side deck. There are 4 more, and honestly, one of them you're not gonna like. I can see why, but first off, we're gonna go with Evenly Matched. Pretty straightforward card. It's solid in the format right now, really good into Rescue Ace. Again, I played to 3 if I had the opportunity to play to 3, but not really doing so right now. And then we have the last card in the deck, 2 copies of Spellbound. Spellbound is an interesting card. It can be really good in certain matchups, and it can be really bad in others. If your opponent is going to be going normal Albaz, discard for cost, try and fusion off your Folgo into the copy of Mirror Jade. You can go Spellbound, your opponent can't do that anymore. You can also allow it to be used on something like a pretty massive board that your opponent has that has no real boss monster out there, and you can just go Spellbound, and you're great. If your opponent decides to be a purely player and they decide to go for purely Yeep, you can chain Spellbound, and then your opponent cannot go Xyz summon into the Purely Noir, which is going to be very important as well. So I think Spellbound has a lot of utility in this format here, and a bit more than people give it credit for. I would honestly say that Spellbound is really underrated, and for that reason, I do think it has a home in this deck. I do want to say that with this entire side deck here, this side deck is very much meant to be a side deck that is tailored to my specific metagame right now. If you guys feel that there are cards that are better off in your specific metagame, by all means, play them. I just do believe that the Wiz, the Drolls, and then the Magnamut and the Druisworm should be played in every single side deck for hire. In my opinion, right now, it's just they're so strong in every situation that you want to have access to, so I would definitely play them. But yeah, that's going to be it for the deck profile. If you guys enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like on the video. If this video hits 100 likes, I'll bring you a combo guide to help you get to the situation where you can just draw 6 cards on your opponent's turn. And if you guys want to see that, then make sure to hit the like button. Again, 100 likes is what we have to hit for that. Of course, guys, make sure to comment down below what decks are you playing this format and what are your thoughts on this specific variant. Are you disappointed I'm playing less sprite cards than you would expect? Are you saying that I'm playing too many sprite cards? I'm curious to see what you guys think about it down below. And of course, guys, subscribe to the channel for more amazing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh videos, and of course help us reach our end of year goal of 3,000 subscribers. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.